Okay, I think we got one person coming in from next door, but I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So, where you want to start, this is going to be kind of an ad hoc, just kind of a walkthrough, how to do the simplest thing, which is our hello world. And then when we go from there, I'll probably do some one-on-one or whatever, we'll figure out where to go from there. But so, is everybody up with their Eclipse looking like this? So they're in their workspace. They've got the SDK installed and everything's ready to go. The plugins all there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then we need to back up a little bit. Yeah, well, I'll talk to you in a little bit. Okay, got you. Anybody else? Okay, so people probably used Eclipse before, right? Android's done a lot of really great stuff integrating a lot of the functionality there, so I love it because I've forgotten how to do a lot of the other manual writing all your build files and stuff for a lot of it. So what you can do is up here, there's an icon that's right here. You can do a couple ways. You can do File, New Project, New Android Project is one way to do it if you're used to the manual thing. Or you just want to go to the nice little button that's right here to build a new project. And then that opens up the dialog to start doing that. Project names. I've seen lots and lots of problems with stuff with Android where you do not want to use anything other than lowercase for project names, file names, and such. It will cause problems if you start doing camel case and that kind of stuff. So we'll just call this our first Hello World project. And we're going to create the project in a new workspace in the default location that we have set up. And then we'll just do next.
It's the same way you can make any.
And then here's where you're going to pick which of the versions of the APIs that you're going to use. Okay. You see that I have a lot installed here. You don't need them all. If you're going to be building just for the new ICS platform, then you only need one of the current ICS platforms, 13, 14, or 15, or 14 or 15, right? If you're doing Google TV, it's 12 or 13, so you need to pick those. If you're doing a cross-platform app that is going to be backward compatible, then you're going to need to go back potentially to the earlier versions as well. There's things like fragments that we use now, right? Since Honeycomb and such, that you can still use. We have a compatibility library that you can import so that you can do fragments, but yet still have them work on earlier platforms. Right? I can only do the two with this setup. So, for what we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at, let's say we're going to do 12. And does everybody understand the difference between the Android version and the Google APIs? Anybody have any questions? Like, what does it mean to have Android APIs and Google APIs? Yeah. Okay, so Android's Android, right? All APIs that come with Android, but if you're going to use things like Calendar, all the other Google products, App Engine, and those kinds of things, then you're going to be using the Google APIs, which are additional. Okay, so then you're going to want to select that one. Okay, it's either or, and so if you're going to be using the Google APIs, you're going to want to pull those files in. Okay, so you click Next, then it comes up with your package name, right? Yeah.
What's the Google TV?
12 or 13. For the Logitech review that you're working with, I would select 12. Yep. Yeah, the Google TV add-on is really, you can pretty much ignore it. You're using Android, right? And so when you say you're setting it up, you're in the AVD and you're trying to set up all the different the packages that are available so that you have that big long list like I just did. You really, when it says Google TV add-on, it's really meant to have the emulator from the Linux environment is really what it does. For what we're doing here, you don't need it. You've got a device, right? So you're going to be doing a device. Don't worry about it.
Is there a special way you're supposed to include the left nav bar library to your project? Because there's like a...
Yeah, you can build it on your Mac, but then you're going to want to push it. When you build, you won't put it on the emulator. You're going to push it right out. Now, if you don't have a Google TV device, what's really fun is if you have a tablet and you build for a tablet, but then you use a Bluetooth keyboard or something to simulate the keyboards that you used to using the D-pad navigation kinds of things that you have to do. So
So what this has done is it made
so you do
your
your package
application
name
dependent on this other project. So every time you build, it'll build that other one as well.
And it'll
include it. Yeah.
also. Oh,
and then
that's a lot of memory.
the create activity by
The other
default
thing
is
you
going
can
to
do
come
is
up
you
with
could
like
go into the
the
left-hand
project
left
name
and export it as a
activity
jar,
is
and
what
then
it will
just
create.
add that to your
Does
library.
everybody know what an activity
in the
is?
same dialogue I just showed you.
Good, then you know.
But I thought that's what the jar was.
No, you
Demo
the actual
SDK,
project.
you can set that there. Again, by default, it's going to be what you selected as your project when you set it up. And then you can just finish. And we'll talk about the structure here.
Okay, so you also have, well, okay.
So it automatically goes and builds. Now, the file structure here that you're looking at is, you'll see the source folder. That's where all your source code is going to go. With Android, you've got this other very important folder set called resources, RES. A couple of things here is in the layouts. This is where you're going to have your the layouts that you're building that are going to be used for your displays, your various views. And the first, by default, it comes out with main. And you know, they have a tool here so you can actually build and kind of see as a graphical version. I always go to the text version, and what you'll see what they build is a linear layout, and within that linear layout they have a text field. And that's the hello world, one of the simplest things you can do. And if you go back to the graphical layout, it kind of renders for you what it's going to look like. You can't see it here because it's, but it actually renders what the screen will look like. If you have multiple setups in here, you can actually change the kind of screen you're looking at so you can get a view, get an idea of what it will look like. I use it, but I don't use it all that much. I actually push it to the device and develop. Yeah. No, I can only present on two. Because usually what we have here is that we have two screens that we project the presentation, and then the other two screens are for VC. So we're VC and somebody else. So the way it's set up here, I think we had some other guys in the back that can do some other patching, but we don't have that today. Okay, so that's what the layout is. If you notice here, they have this thing called...
that, or you could try another sample one where you don't do any of the setup work. You just drop in the jar and see what you can get working.
So there's questions about screen size in development. That's the really cool thing that's around for that we want to talk to you about, and that you'll listen to the talks later. But there's a lot of things you can do to build a layout that we talked about last night, stretching. You know, in 9-patch images so that it can automatically be resized for the screen that it's on. And there's some other things you do with the folder structures here. If you look here, it says drawable, HDPI, LDPI. These are various screen sizes, so Android will be able to detect which platform you're on and know which of these folder sets that you can use. There's more. So if you have a layout that, let's say it's a side-by-side layout, so it needs a screen size of, say, a minimum of 800 dpi, for example, then there's a folder setting that's now available that you can put in there with SW 800 dpi, where you define the minimum screen width for this layout to work. And if it doesn't meet that requirement, then it goes to a default folder. So it's managing those folders and the content within there is how you want to manage that. But we'll talk about that later in another talk. But this is where you're going to put all your graphics, your images. If you have stateless drawables where you have a button and when you press the button, it's going to look one way, and if it's not pressed, it's going to look another way. And that Christian mentioned last night about having the focus, not focus, focus selected, those kinds of states. You can put the XML file in here, and that's what your drawable will be defined by that. You can put them in these folders. A lot of the things, like, you really can't see it in here, but just because of the text here, but this string right there, so it's a text. It's a text field, and I want to populate that text field with a string, and instead of just putting in quotes, which you can hard code it in there, right? But it's better if you use variables, it's better programming practices. So we have a thing set up here where it says @string and then the variable of hello. And if you go into the values folder, there's a file called strings.xml. That's where all the strings are located at. I do one where I have strings. I define colors. You can define all sorts of fun parts and pieces. And inside this file, you will see that there's a string called hello, right there, and then the value of what hello is put in there. So that's just good programming practice that way. And if you go back to the layout here for the main, then you'll see that what happens is that right in here is where that string gets displayed. So you got the layouts, you've got your graphics, you've got your variables that you'll be using, or your values that you're going to be using, and then you have your source code. If you pull up the source, all it does is it does import the various methods it's going to be needing, the classes it's going to be using, and the first application extends activity, because that's what the foundation is, and it simply pulls up the main view that we just talked about. It says set the content view to that view, and it's going to display it. That's what it does. The other last file that when you're doing Android, and what you need to know about is the manifest. The manifest is crucial in a lot of ways, because this is where you're going to give permissions to do things. So if your application requires access to the internet, then you're going to have to put that permission in here. If you're going to, this is where for Google TV, we're going to talk about later that, by default, Android is a touch type environment. Google TV is not. If you want to be featured in Google Play for Google TV, and you have not turned that off as a required feature, which it is by default, you will never show up in the Google TV, Google Play environment. So if your application will never be discoverable there. So things like you have to come in here and set no touch as required equals false. And we're going to talk about some more of that stuff later today too. That's what the talk's coming up later about. But this is where you set it up, is inside this manifest. If you need location, again, location in Google TV is different because it's not GPS. It is pretty much the zip code that you typed in to tell us where you're at, so that when we can do location or programming data, we can find that. That's the location we get. So there's a different way you do it, where you put in a static item instead of looking up for a GPS service sometimes. Things like that. I use the ADK, so I've got an application I program where I use Android to talk to Arduino microcontrollers using the new accessories development kit. There's permissions you have to put in for that to make that work. Let's see, making sure that your application is not required to be in portrait mode. You can set that up in here too. Every activity you have that you're going to be running, right, not activity intents that you're going to be running, you got to put those in here. So this is a very, very important file that you need to manage, and so that's why I want to highlight it. Once you've got your manifest working, you've got your code working, you've got all your layouts working, then in order to compile this, as long as you're connected, so you've already done the ADB connect, to your device, and that communication's working back and forth, then all you have to do is simply come up here, do a run as, and the first time you do it, it's going to ask you what kind of application you want to run it as. You just do it as an Android application. Do OK. Now it's going to have an error here for me because I don't have a device selected. Right, I don't have that there, but you're going to need to, when it's there, that window will pop up. You select the IP address of the device that you want to push it to, and it loads it. It'll build. It'll take the APK, load it to the device, do an install, and then it'll actually launch it. So if you guys try it right now after doing this, you should have the Hello World pop up on the screen. So that's the quick, dirty, simple how to do an Android application using Eclipse. And then you have all the wonderful, wonderful learning curve of all the Android APIs. Any questions? The process is the same for TV and for yeah, it's just the same. Yeah, usually what it is that you have your Android tablet or your phone, and you have a USB and you plug it in, and when you pop up, you'll see an ID code for the device, right? Well, you don't have the cable here; it's over IP that you're talking to Android or to the Google TV. So that's That's why you do the ADB connect process, and once that communication is there, then you do the same thing, you push and it goes right up. And this is where you learn, we start doing multi-platform, which we really like to see. For those of you that are porting your tablet code to Google TV, you don't want to create new code, you just bring your existing one in and you add new layouts and you start detecting which device that you're on and that kind of thing.